Welcome and welcome back. We are here for the fourth in a 52-part series as we journey week by week through the Daily Stoic by Ryan Holiday and Stephen Hanselman. Now, today, normally what I do in this series is I present one day from the week and sort of give some type of personal perspective on it. This series of videos is not to replace reading the book, it is to supplement reading the book. I think that no matter where you are, no matter where we are in the year, it would benefit someone greatly to have the book. But I don't think it's necessary. That said, I'll be presenting 2 days today, and I will be giving a little bit of context on why I think that these 2 days should be presented together, and coincidentally, they are kissing pages in the book itself. They are January 26th and January 27th. January 26th, the power of mantra. The quote, which is then given context by the authors, the quote that is utilized here is from Marcus Aurelius in Meditations. Erase the false impressions from your mind by constantly saying to yourself, I have it in my soul to keep out any evil, desire, or any kind of disturbance. Instead, seeing the true nature of things, I will give them only their due. Always remember this power that nature gave you. Marcus Aurelius, Meditations 8.29, and the context given by our authors. Anyone who has taken a yoga class or been exposed to Hindu or Buddhist thought has probably heard of the concept of a mantra. In Sanskrit, it means, quote, sacred utterance, end quote. Essentially a word, a phrase, a thought, even a sound, intended to provide clarity or spiritual guidance. A mantra can be especially helpful in the meditative process because it allows us to block out everything else while we focus. It's fitting, then, that Marcus Aurelius would suggest this Stoic mantra, a daily reminder or watch phrase to use when we feel false impressions, distractions, or the crush of everyday life upon us. It says essentially, quote, I have the power within me to keep that out. I can see the truth, end quote. Change the wording as you like. That part is up to you. But have a mantra and use it to find the clarity you crave. I'm going to go back to this part. A reminder or catchphrase to use when we feel false impressions, distractions, or the crush of everyday life upon us. That is what the suggested use for a mantra is. It is that which is the suggested use for a mantra. I use a couple of these in my daily life. Neither of them is particularly pleasing to me. So when I was in grad school, and I've told derivations of this story many times here on the channel, I really became a monk. I really sort of woke up, read, wrote, worked out, ate something, edited, typed, and slept. That was what I did. And I had a word count to which I would hold myself accountable every day. And oftentimes, it would, like I've said many times on this channel and on Strip Cover Lit, it would resort to me sort of complaining about life. That was what I would resort to if I couldn't come up with any other words to meet my words for the day. So I would also, and I went back and I realized this is what I was doing in this notebook. I got to the end of the notebook, went back through it, and I realized all I'm doing is complaining. I'm wasting all of this time. And I have an affinity, just an affinity for the word fuck. Love it. Love it. Favorite thing in the world, fuck. And I would sit there in my notebook and I would write fuck, 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 over and over. I would start sentences with it. I would start paragraphs with it. I would start and end things with it. So what I would do, what I finally figured out I could do, is I could channel all of this aggravation of the day, the sort of cloud of irritation that builds up on you. Because that's all I was doing. I was channeling the irritations of life through my little hand and writing it on the page. So I figured out what I was able to do if I sat down and I just practiced. We'll say practice. I wrote the word fuck as many times as I could on one line. One line, that's all I got during the day. Every time that I could write it. On one line, as many times as I could write it, and those words counted towards my daily total. As many times as I could write it, but I only had one line. And at the end of writing that, somewhere around the middle of writing that, I would realize how ridiculous it was what I was doing. And by the end of the line, I was able to pull myself out and say, okay, don't be an idiot. You've only got these couple years to be in grad school, to dedicate yourself to the craft, to dedicate yourself to literature. You've only got these couple years. This day counts towards those couple years. These words that you're writing count towards those couple years. So by the time I was done with that line of wasting time, of wasting words, of wasting ink and paper, but getting to say fuck a lot, by the time I was done with that one line, I was able then to refocus things. The other mantra that I use, if I am ever dedicated to the word fuck, the second phrase in my life that I hold near and dear, God damn it. God damn it. Or, more readily, God damn it, Adrian. Or, if need be, God damn it, Adrian, you dumb son of a bitch. Those phrases, on these days where I'm feeling quite lazy, those phrases will get me out of bed. Those phrases will get me off my chair. Those phrases... I'm also pretty heavily antisocial, so I will go someplace. If I've got to go to the supermarket, if I've got to go wherever to do whatever, I'll go someplace, I'll park, and I'll just sit there. I don't want to do this. I don't want to be around people. And that phrase, God damn it, Adrian, you dumb son of a bitch, gets me out of that truck. It'll get me out, get me going. I didn't realize how bad I was about this until I lived with a roommate in college. And I don't remember what he was, I think he has to change his spark plugs or something. I've never done that. Never done it. So I said, wow, you should have told me. You could have told me how to do that. I would have loved to have been there and helped you, but also learned the process. And he looked at me and said, yeah, I should have told you. That way I could be the one that said, God damn it, Adrian, because his name was Lee. I guess I always said, whenever he'd mess something up, I'd go, God damn it, Lee. So apparently the phrase is good, not just for the self, not just for self-motivation, but for motivation in general. The kissing page to this, January 27th, the 3 areas of training. And the quote here comes from Epictetus in Discourses. The quote is as such: there are 3 areas in which the person who would be wise and good must be trained. The first has to do with desires and aversions, that a person may never miss the mark in desires nor fall into what repels them. The second has to do with impulses to act and not to act, and more broadly, with duty, that a person may act deliberately for good reasons and not carelessly. The third has to do with freedom from deception and composure, and the whole area of judgment, the assent our mind gives to its perceptions. Of these areas, The chief and most urgent is the first, which has to do with the passions. For strong emotions arise only when we fail in our desires and aversions. Epictetus, Discourses, and from our authors here in the book. Today, let's focus on the three areas of training that Epictetus laid out for us. First, we must consider what we would desire and what we should be averse to. Why? So that we want what is good and avoid what is bad. It is not enough to just listen to your body, because our attractions often lead us astray. I mean, you've dated her too, right? You know what I'm saying? Next, we must examine... I'm a 36-year-old man. I can't remember the last time my voice cracked. Next, we must examine our impulses to act, that is, our motivations. Are we doing things for the right reasons, or do we act because we haven't stopped to think? Or do we believe that we have to do something? Finally, there is our judgment. Our ability to see things clearly and properly comes when we use our great gift from nature, reason. These are three distinct areas of training, but in practice they are inextricably intertwined. Our judgment affects what we desire. Our desires affect how we act, just as our judgment determines how we act. But we can't just expect this to happen. We must put real thought and energy into each area of our lives. If we do, we'll find real clarity and success. Now, I want to sort of take this part bit by bit, section by section. First, we must consider what we should desire and what we should be averse to. Why? So that we want what is good and avoid what is bad. It's not enough to just listen to your body, because our attractions often lead us astray. So, a lot of my stories for this day, this lesson, coming to us from Epictetus, a lot of my personal relations to this will come from work stories. So, I used to work with a guy. We'll call him Todd. That wasn't his name. His name was James. I don't want to put his name out there, right? So Todd was a guy who, look, about my age. This was 5 years ago, so 30 at the time. 30 years old is really, I think, at least from my experience, my observations, when a guy's body starts to rebel against him. In your 20s, you get away with a lot of stuff. It seems to me that right around 30, everything starts saying, hey, fuck you. Your back, no. We'll do what we want. Your knees, hey. Running? Your fat ass thinks you're going to run? No. You haven't run all winter. Now you want to run. Your stomach, your belly, your gut starts to say, we've kept it in for a while now. Fuck you. All these things start to happen. And it's easy, very easy, to fall victim to that. It's very easy for nature to take its course, for entropy to succumb to entropy. It's very easy. Todd kind of started to fall down that path. Health, weight, sort of presentation, all these things suffering, slipping a little bit. Now, Todd, the funny thing about him, would labor every night, wouldn't work hard at all. But right around 1 in the morning, work overnights, right around 1:30, you take your lunch, whatever. Right around 1:30, the real labor began for Todd. because Todd had to pick out what he wanted for lunch. Now, he would languish over what he was going to buy for lunch for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. And by the time he picked it, it was garbage and expensive. I, personally, have a rule. You can either eat cheap and garbage, or you can eat expensive and healthy. Where you start ruining your own life one bite at a time is when you eat expensive garbage. Now, eating garbage at all comes at a price to your health. But so long as you're smart with your money, you're getting ahead somewhere. That's always been my rule. You can eat cheap garbage or expensive and healthy. If you can find cheap and healthy, you're in the gold, right? But Todd, every night, he would ruin 20 minutes of his own work looking for lunch, and by the time he would pick it, it would be garbage and expensive. Because, where's the quote here? Our attractions often lead us astray. First, we must consider what we should desire and what we should be averse to. It is easy, I think, in today's surplus society, to go with whatever we want, whatever we feel like, man, yeah. Because it is strange to choose one's desires. A lot of people consider it strange. So when I tell people, I don't have favorites, I don't have favorite stuffs, I don't have a favorite meal, I don't care. I don't care. Obviously, there's things I like. There are things to which I will gravitate, but I don't care. If I have nasty food, it will be eaten until it is no more. Right? That is one place where I have the type of discipline necessary to carry through with something. The next paragraph here. Next, we must examine our impulses to act. That is, our motivations. Are we doing things for the right reasons? Or do we act because we haven't stopped to think? Or do we believe that we have to do something? Another work story. We've got these things at work. They're little scanners. You carry them around with you. Scan products, see where they go, things like that, right? They're like $1,200 a pop. Very expensive. People steal them all the time. I guess there's a secondary black market for them. I worked with another guy. We'll call him Pierre. Pierre isn't his name. His name was James, but we'll call him Pierre because I don't want to put his name out there. So Pierre, one night was going about his business, and I had obviously communicated, hey, this expensive thing here, don't leave it anywhere. Don't leave it anywhere. This is expensive. He was walking around, and he happened to set it down someplace where he was working and turns back to it. Just like that, gone. Somebody came up, swooped it up, stole it, just like that, had it on camera and everything. The minute he turned around. Now, if you asked him, why did you leave that piece of equipment there? He didn't think about it. He just didn't think about it. He knew it was important not to do that. He didn't lose it on purpose. He wasn't present. He was not present in the moment. The quote here, or do we act because we haven't stopped to think? He did not stop to think, hey, don't leave this here. Someone could steal it. He just didn't stop to think about it. It was an unstoic moment. The final thing here, finally, there is our judgment, our ability to see things clearly and properly. When it comes properly, finally, there is our judgment. Our ability to see things clearly and properly comes when we use our great gift from nature, reason. This is a big one for me. I think I do a poor job of remembering I have to act. I do not have to react. I have to act. If, for example, a situation comes up at work, a customer comes in with some type of refund I'm not supposed to do, I don't just say no. Don't just say no. That's reacting. Hear what that customer is saying, knowing you're going to say no. Once that customer presents, for various reasons, whatever, I'm not getting into the specifics of work, but for whatever reason, if I have to deny that person's refund, I have to know that I'm going to get their story. Using their story, I'm going to be able to formulate what I'm doing instead of crackhead Carrie coming in off the street with something that is obviously stolen merchandise and saying, hey, I'd like to return this. And I say, no. I have to formulate while that's happening. I have to act. I do not have to react. And I think these 2 days go together awfully well, because what will often happen to us during any of these decision-making moments is that we will not act. We will react. So, presented with a situation, it helps to have a mantra to remind yourself of what's going on. For example, another work story. This is the reason that I think these 2 days go together so well. I used to be very bad at getting angry at work. A situation would pop up, whatever the situation is. I've been a manager since I was 18 years old, right? So any type of situation came up, I would get angry. And that anger would short circuit my reasoning capabilities. I would be so angry at what I was having to do that I couldn't see through it. I would just stop at whatever that was, right? Whatever that problem is, it's here. And I'm not seeing through it to possible answers. It was years before I recognized that I was doing this. It was years before obviously I knew I had problems with anger, with being angry. But it was years before I recognized exactly what I was doing. What I was doing was in that moment, in that problematic moment, I was getting frustrated because there was some part of me that was convinced I would not be able to solve it. And I'm an eschatological type personality. Everything goes immediately to death, right? Everything goes immediately to the worst case scenario. Everything is automatically end of the world scenario. So, some problem would come up, and I would immediately, in my mind, go to being fired, not being able to pay my bills, getting evicted, living on the streets. I'm too pretty for the streets, man. I wouldn't last out there. Automatically in my mind, that's where I would go. Now, and so I would get angry as a defense mechanism. And one thing that's helped me, whether it's true or not, again, words have power. Casting a spell has power. That's all really casting a spell is. Incantation is. Incantation, mantras have power, whether you really believe the words or not. So, now, whenever one of these situations comes up at work, and there is some question as to whether or not I will be able to deal with this thing, in my mind, I just say, hey, you're better than this. You're better than this. I don't know if it's true or not. Someday there's going to be something that comes in that I don't know how to answer, right? But just that phrase, you're better than this, helps. Another story. I'm Andrew Cuomoing here. Another story. My grandmother. I was teaching a girl to drive. One of my friends, I met a friend in college, didn't know how to drive. I was teaching her to drive. And she was very smart girl. But she would sort of freak out behind the wheel. She would tense up. She was afraid she was going to, like I was afraid I was going to end up on the streets because someone has a photo order, while I'm running register, something like that. My mind automatically goes to, I'm going to be living on the streets. She would get in the driver's seat of a car and be afraid she was going to crash it. She's going to wreck the car. Wrecking the car, doesn't necessarily, you hit a curb, that's wrecking a car. You still got a car, you still got your life, right? So anyway, she would tense up. So the thing that I taught her to do, I met her in class, right? And it was a math class. She was very good at math. I was not. We sat right next to a person who really kind of an idiot. I'm just going to put that out there. Kind of a stupid person. Sometimes it's obvious when a person is a stupid person, right? We'll call this person Esmeralda. Esmeralda wasn't her name. Her name was James. We'll call her Esmeralda. So Esmeralda was there, right? Esmeralda was a common point of knowledge that both of us had. We both knew Esmeralda. We both knew Esmeralda, kind of a dum-dum. So when we were getting ready to drive, and she would be tensed up every time before she started. Hey, you know Esmeralda, right? Yeah. Esmeralda drives, doesn't she? Yeah. Esmeralda's a dum-dum, isn't she? Well, yeah. If Esmeralda can drive, why in the high hell can't you? If she can do this right, you can do this right. And every time, it's a little bit of a harsh lesson, but every time, that would loosen her up. And she would be much better, much more relaxed behind the wheel. That is all I have for this, the fourth edition, the fourth episode of 52 in the Daily Stoic series. It really does help me out here on the channel if you enjoy this sort of thing, if you hit that like button for me. If you were here by chance but not design and you somehow made it through a 29-minute video, consider hitting the subscribe button. And you can always find me over at Stripped Cover Lit 2, where I talk about fiction, short stories, poetry, etc., etc. And I hope to see you here for the next episode of the Daily Stoic. And eventually, maybe this week, I'm going to be going back and doing the 3.5 video. There is a day from last week that I want to present, but I need a little bit more time to do it. And if you were watching this in the future, it will just be in the playlist in the right order. Hope to see you next time.